You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hi-ho, kids. Welcome to another fun edition of Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler, and we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen.
You really hate when I do stuff like that, don't you?
What?
Hi-ho, kids.
No, I don't hate it. It's just always interesting.
I like to change it up a little bit. And we're going to change it up today because we have my friend Alex Suchman here, who is the CEO of BarometerXP, and we'll get an explanation of the name and everything like that. And I've actually worked with Barometer, and I'm working with them off and on, and it's a really different company. So Alex herself is an organizational development specialist, and she came upon the play angle naturally, right? Didn't you, Alex?
Yeah.
And so she spent more than a decade studying the science of play at work. I should probably put on these. That would help a lot. And you guys partnered up for Barometer in 2019, and you've been working together ever since. And in 2023, last year, Barometer XP was named to the Story Exchange's list of 12 brilliant business ideas. And now you're working with that. And there's like a whole database, and there's a pressure matrix. I mean, there is so much that goes into this. I told your partner, Peter, when I first started working, you need me because I love what you're doing, basically. And so, hi, Alex, welcome.
Welcome, Alex.
Right. Wow, that's a lot to live up to.
I know.
So I always get to start off, and we ask, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And in your case, did you want to be in learning and development? Did you want to be in technology? What did you see yourself
in organizational
doing?
development?
You're going to be now.
Well, until I was about 13 and realized I'd stopped growing, I wanted to be a rockette. I grew up a dancer and always loved tap dancing, but I'm 5'2", and so that dream was dashed. And then I thought I wanted to be a psychologist. That's actually what I went to college for. I was always really interested in human behavior, and then ended up going not into psychology, but into public health for the first decade or so of my career, and then into organization development. It's been a kind of a windy road to end up in the play space.
They actually go really well together. Jeffrey, you also you were a psychology major, weren't you?
It ended up, yes. Abnormal psych, specifically for me, which was training for Rona.
Yeah, that's right. Which is, I was
just God, there's that moment in abnormal psych where you're self-diagnosing with every condition you read about.
Exactly.
And
exactly,
he has an answer for everyone.
Yes, and sometimes the patterns are really scary.
Well, and the fact is that there is so much psychology to play, and I think that's related to your pressure matrix, right? It's a lot of psychology. So, tell us. Go ahead.
No. So then you want to be a rockette, and you're in school, and you're a psychology major, and then what happened?
Yeah. So when I was in undergrad, I did a few internships in the mental health field because I really thought I would pursue in clinical social work, clinical psychology, but realized that I'm too high of an empath. I have a hard time. I get very caught up in people's stories and really want to do whatever I can to help people, and recognized, thankfully, before I went to grad school or started working in that field, that I would just burn out really quickly from helping people who have really difficult challenges in their life. And so I went into public health because it gave me a chance to work on, the same types of issues, but at a more macro level, and felt like I was making a difference and able to help people's lives be better. And I worked in a few different settings in public health, mostly around policy, like policies that would increase access to care, intersection between health and other social policy areas, and truly loved the work that I was doing. But my psychology alarm started going off looking at how my colleagues were interacting at workplace dynamics and how dysfunctional workplace dynamics tend to be. I had this idea that once I grow up, once you're an adult, the middle school cafeteria politics no longer exists. And that's not the case. And the things that were causing morale issues, the things that people were coming into my office and venting about ad nauseum, the things that were causing problems in the quality of the work were all interpersonal dynamics that were pretty predictable. And it drove me crazy because I said, this person is coming into my office, for hours every week and complaining about how the people that they supervise aren't doing what they're supposed to do, but they can't see that they give terrible instructions and they don't leave any opportunity for people to ask questions. So it's really unfair of them to expect people to read their minds. And I just started seeing things like this everywhere. And that's what shifted me towards first operations management and then organization development. Was how do you set up organizations so that they can be more functional, so there's less friction points that can lead to interpersonal challenges, mistakes and quality issues with the work. And how do you keep people who start a job because they're really motivated by what the work is and what the outcomes are going to be, to keep them motivated and engaged and not just focused on the day-to-day, minutia that drains their energy.
So the organizational development mindset was set in and was driving you, and you were looking at that, and that's hard to do. So what initially drove it, real quick? Was it your passion for helping the people and seeing the dynamics of the organization interfering with that help? Or was it the fact that you were just floored that middle school exists?
I think it's a part of the former. Obviously I'm always drawn to help. Like, that's just where I derive my sense of sort of value, and my energy is helping other people. But a lot of it is physically painful for me to hear people complain about something that is very easily solvable. And to be like, if it would take less time to solve this than it does for you to complain about this, and, to take both of our time and to cause both of our blood pressure to go way up. It just drove me crazy. And a lot of the things people were complaining about, it was, oh, it's so annoying. We have to, write this type of proposal all the time, and it's so stressful. I was like, well, 70% of it is exactly the same every time. What if I just made a template and we all use the same template? What if I did some training on how to manage a project and how to look at different indicators so everybody knew how to do it and it wasn't chaos all the time? And I was very self-taught in this, but I could just see these problems don't have to be here. I see an easy solution. I'm just going to implement those. And so initially I was still doing the policy and research stuff, but on the side, I was plugging all these holes and fixing all these problems. And then I went to my bosses, the owners of the company, and said, I'm doing 2 totally different roles right now. I just need to focus on one, and I want to go in this direction.
And there you go.
And I did.
Fantastic. Rona?
All right. So you've been doing this, and then you met, how did BarometerXP get started? And then when Peter and Roddy come along, they were, full disclosure for our audience, I'm throwing them under the bus. They were supposed to be here, but but life got in the way. So
life happened.
Life happened. So yeah. So we'll have them on a later podcast with everybody, and then we'll get their version of the story. So how did it get started? Tell us that background story.
And it's a bus with big squishy soft tires, and it's a little tiny bus, so nobody was injured in this example.
No one was injured.
Right. It was just annoying. Oh, just over their
just a little nudge.
Toes. Yeah.
Just a nudge. So I went on my own doing consulting and facilitation in 2017, and what I thought was really sort of different and special about my perspective was that I wasn't just looking at the process side, and I wasn't just looking at the people side. Those two really have to work together. And that's where I think a lot of other efforts fall short, is they're only looking at, the process and wanting to ignore that we are emotional, irrational, messy social beings, or they're just dealing with the people stuff, but not towards any real concrete outcomes. But what was happening over and over with my clients is, I'd be hired to organize a shared drive or create an operating manual for how to plan this type of event or something. The biggest challenge was getting all of the stakeholders in the room and talking to each other with the mindset of, we all have room for improvement, and this final outcome is going to benefit all of us. It was very easy to default into, well, I do everything correctly and I know everything, but it's my colleagues that need help, and they're the ones who have the problems. And to me, it was so crystal clear. Okay, well, this person is, for them, what's most important is all the little details and getting everything right. And to this person, what's most important is sort of saving face and sort of ego. And for this person, what's most important is getting to be creative and finding the nuance in every situation. So essentially, you have three people all complaining about the outcome, but they're all working on very different definitions of the project and have, the problem is different, the solution is really different. And until they can understand that about each other, there is not a darn thing that I can do that's going to fix this. And so what was so clear to me, like, how I can't just tell them you're too focused on the details, you're a little bit self-centered, that doesn't work at all. So it was, how do you create an experience where those types of insights come out? How do you stimulate these dynamics in a much lower stakes environment? And that's when I met Peter, who is a game designer. And we both started experimenting with the idea of games. We would play and make up little games together and then have a really long nerdy talk about, okay, this is why I did this. And I thought this was interesting. And here's what I perceived was behind what your move was and your approach. And we got to know each other on so many levels in a really quick amount of time and realized there's something really powerful here. There's something about creating these shared experiences with very low stakes, but different types of challenges that opens up a ton of conversations. And so this is in maybe late 2018, early 2019, and we didn't really know what we were doing. I started bringing our games to the clients that I was working with, and we started doing little meetups and forcing our friends to come and play games and give us feedback. And then we realized we were really onto something, on a way of using play for experiential learning, specifically about team dynamics and team culture and organizational health.
Yeah, and I love the fact that so many of us in the play space are after the same thing, and we all come about it in a different way. And one of the things that I love about Barometer is that, and you've made this point before, that it's sometimes, those of us in the space are hard pressed for concrete evidence and reasons and things like that. And people in the company space on the other side, in the corporations, that's what they need, that's what they want. So just talking about it, and play is really fun, yeah, there's science behind it, and that's what makes it stick. Mm-hmm. So that's why I appreciated how the pressure matrix, where you have the 9 different dynamics and things like that, make them realize, oh, we really do, this is where the issues are. So they can't really argue with it.
Yeah. And again, whenever every team that you're in, you feel like your dynamics, the problems that you're having, are unique to you, but there's some very common threads. There's clarity over roles and expectations. There's lack of shared understanding about what the goals are. There's disagreement about values. They're all, there's these 9 buckets of what some of these challenges are. And so by being able to identify those and then look at what are the game mechanics, what are the play mechanics that exploit or sort of manifest those types of dynamics when a group of people is working on it, you're able to recreate conditions where those tensions and those types of conversations are going to come up, and then have people reflect and talk about it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm gathering you're very nurturing, you're very caring, you make this process very simple for people now. So, we're both we do the same industry. And I was more the mad scientist approach. And the clients I looked for were the ones that were willing to experiment and try something. So, when you saw things, did you try? So I used a lot of direct, just total transparency, brought up confrontation to get them to talk about it. So it was the exact opposite of what games. Games are the fun, bringing it in, and I was taking the hard kind of, ruthless.
Bang them over the head with it.
Yeah. Give them a knife and let them. That's how they're going to
Kill
learn
themselves,
not to play with knives anymore, or something like that. So did you ever experiment with the dark side? Let's call it. Did you ever experiment? Because when you say pointing out what they're doing wrong and how they're, micromanaging their own thing, it doesn't work. And it doesn't. I totally
They don't
agree.
wanna-
Did you
yeah, they don't wanna
did
hear
you
it.
find that through experimentation, or you just seen enough of it in life as an observer?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the hit over the head approach works for some people. And in some industries, the fields that I was working in, both in my public health career and then when I was doing consultant, tended to be the more mission focused, service oriented, not looking at quantitative indicators for success or helping. And so with those people, it was not good. They were not going to respond well at all. They were not going to trust me or want to work with me anymore if I took the sort of brutal, tough love approach. I sort of had to, it's the how do you create it so like the answer is inside you and was there the whole time. You just didn't see it. And I realized
It's
that
like
was
magic.
because that's how you then motivate people to change. The
Right.
goal isn't just for people to know you're doing something wrong. The goal is for that to be the first step on the road to I understand why I would benefit and we would all benefit from me doing something different. And so with that mindset, if I wanted to have a longer relationship with clients, I had to leave them with a positive feeling that change was possible and that they were inspired and bought into the idea.
Yeah. Well, that's why play is based in that positive psychology. And so I want to talk a little bit about or ask you the difference I'm trying to think how to frame this. People talk about games and they talk about play. And sometimes, there are companies out there, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to get sued, that offer games and they're not fun. It's like, oh, we'll gamify this.
Oh, I
And
hate
it's me
gamification.
too.
That's like a hill I will die on.
I agree. So there's a difference between play, games, and gamification. What have you seen in your end, and how would you approach that if someone asks?
Yeah. Well, I like to make the distinction whenever people, oh, so you're in the gamification space, and sometimes I'm like, is it wrong to, is it worth correcting them? But gamification I think of it as linked to the attention economy. It is taking elements of a game to make people more likely to engage in a certain behavior. And usually that behavior is reading, studying some content, or time spent on an app, engaging with a certain business. And that's not what we're trying to do at all. We're more on game learning. So using game as a tool in some broader learning, development, change context. So it's about the game itself or the activity itself. So that's one important distinction. With games and play, I think there's a lot of different definitions, but for me, what the distinction is a game is more concrete and defined, and there's a particular type of outcome you're trying to get. Somebody wins or loses, or you reach, this level. Whereas play, I see as it's less structured. It's sort of about the experience itself and not getting towards a particular outcome. And so when you say playing a game, it's about having the experience of going through the game, but there is an ending. Whereas play is more open-ended and purely about the experience.
Yeah.
And Rona, is that the same definition that you would use?
Absolutely. Yeah, and can you have, and it's about fun. People learn better and they're more apt to change when they're in a good mood, and sometimes gamification it's not fun, it's just different, than
Well, and I think real learning and people get into a curious mindset and are willing to be vulnerable and curious. You have to create an emotional experience for that to
Absolutely.
happen. You
Yeah.
can't put a giant textbook in front of somebody and expect that that's going to engage them.
Yeah.
So, and especially, for us, as we're thinking about how are you getting people to social behaviors? That's all about emotions. You're going to behave a very different way in a situation where you feel positive or you feel like there's,
Absolutely.
an opportunity to experience joy or for, something collaborative to come out of it.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to put people in that emotional mindset so that they're willing to engage and
Yeah,
willing to
and
go
play
through
is
the
all,
journey.
and play is all. And I interrupted you. My apologies. One of my things is that play is not necessarily just something you do. It's a mindset also. When that's playful mind. You need that, and you need that psychological safety in order to play a game and be your authentic self. So You were going to say
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
I think you saw me out of peripheral vision, and I was going to ask a question. So
Yeah.
jump in.
Sorry.
So yeah, one of the reasons I connected with Rona initially and we started working together was because of the difference. She was coming from the play side, and I was coming from the other side.
He does OD work. You can say it.
And
So.
so I just saw this morning during coffee the guy who created the word meme. And he was discussing about meme and how the definition of meme's been hijacked and it's being used completely differently than what it was originally intended. And Rona and I have gotten in discussions about the definition and the distinction between creativity and innovation. And so if you had to define it, and there's overlap and there's play and there's misunderstanding in it, the distinctive elements of play versus not gamification, utilization of games. Play is obviously part of games.
Yeah. I think that the play is the recognizing and making space for the unknown, the uncertain, the unpredictable. There's certain games where there's very little room for serendipity to happen. And with those, Monopoly is an example. I guess the serendipity is like, how long does it take for somebody to get mad enough to flip the board? Like, exactly what's going to happen. There's not really that much room for creativity in it. And so I would say there's not much room for play in that unless you're willing to go outside the rules and, add a little extra elements. Whereas in a game that's a little bit more like creative expression, something like a charades or
even pickles.
Usually pickles are even. I mean, there's board games that are incredibly, that have room for it. But where it's less technical, it's not about a technical knowledge and series of technical sequences. It's more curiosity or, people having a conversation and having to come up with a decision that neither one could have come to on their own.
And there's,
so
strategy.
There's more vulnerability.
So part of the expertise then is which games to utilize based on, and it's one of the factors you're deciding on is the amount of structure required. And I was laughing when you said flip the Monopoly board because I distinctly remember in high school playing with the family and having gone to jail 3 times in a row. I literally flipped the board. And pouted and stomped
Jeffrey,
out of the room.
I have flipped a board a few times and not proud of it, but I was definitely probably under the age of like 12. And
yes, unfortunately, my chronological age and my actual emotional intelligence age
diametrically opposed to each other.
They've gotten better. I've regained control. Well, now I do it and know that I'm doing something wrong. So.
And and it's a big thing knowing what games to offer. And I've talked to you about this, Alex, before. So many HR people and managers, they do what I call games spaghetti. They will throw a bunch of things at the wall and hope something sticks. And I think it desensitizes the company culture to it because it's like, we tried this, it didn't work. I tried this, it didn't work. It's like, well,
he said that it creates a very hardened skepticism or cynicism about any type of play or game. And that's where one of the things that Barometer is trying to do is to create the discipline around play facilitation and all the different considerations that have to go into not only selecting a game, but designing an experience. And part of it is meeting a team where they are. And part of it is looking at what are the outcomes that you're trying to get to and how do you create it? And it's not just picking a random game off the shelf or doing something that, you did with your friend that was really fun and bringing it into a retreat. That those are such different situations that a game that is really fun and appropriate in one setting is absolutely not in another.
Well, that's why some of the issues that I have with the older books that have come out that have like Tiagi games and activities, and there are some great ones in there if you know when to use them. and how many people are involved, and what's their issue, and what's the real issue, what's the underlying issue.
Hmm.
And it's those kind of books often are like a one size fits all, and that's not how couture play works.
And that's really what we're trying to, the space that we're trying to fill are, what are some of the frameworks that you can use to identify the right play experience for a particular situation.
Right.
Yeah, what's interesting, and Rona's and we've talked about this so much going on. She's always talking about the nuances that you guys bring to it. And I'm always playing the voice of the market, and I keep comparing games and the role of play in the corporate organizational environment to storytelling. So storytelling, when it first came out, it was like poo-pooed by the organizations, and now they can't get enough of it. And this morning I was talking to a colleague, and literally they're having a war, and the director of HR is about ready to walk out of this company, and she was brought in because of the fights going on and about the role of storytelling in this meeting that's coming up. And they're trying to keep the stories same and tight and make everybody look good. And she's trying to bring new perspectives with the stories. So it's a full on, and they're actually literally fighting like it's down to careers. So do you see, you mentioned Tyagi, and when Tyagi talked when I was first in the industry, he was like, coming from outer space for everybody else. And I absolutely loved the stuff that he brought. It still didn't have the impact. It was just getting us to start talking about it in our programs. And now I see it. Do you see it happening more in organizations? Are they becoming self-aware of the critical importance of play in games and how it can guide this translation? Or are we still at the bottom line of the exponential curve?
I would say we're still pretty early in that, innovation adoption curve. There's more people that are curious and open to it. I think there's starting to be more of a recognition that the way a lot of learning and development across the full range, not just trainings, but, how are people onboarded? What do you do for culture and employee appreciation? Then what do you do for intervention when there's a problem or you're trying to change an organization? Everything across that, up until very recently, has been you can quantify everything. You can look at everything completely objectively. I think the Industrial Revolution and sort of technology development model is it's so simple. This happens and this happens and this happens, and you can separate all these things and isolate them. It would be amazing if it worked that way. But most jobs revolve around people. Most work involves interaction between people. And so it's not going to be so neat and simple. It's not going to be objective or quantifiable. So you have to make space for the human experience. You have to be able to figure out, how do you motivate people, and how do you, get people to be curious or open to new ideas. And the current models for delivering learning and development don't address that. So for the people that recognize that and are looking for something else, we've had a really enthusiastic response. But I think it's still in its infancy.
It's a scary moment, and you and I have talked about this. It's like, how do you equate play with ROI? It doesn't work like that,
Well,
yeah.
And
I think a lot of people have been scarred by a very, at best forced fun, at worst some type of game or play team bonding experience that actually did more harm than good. Sure. And so they've written off the whole possibility of it. And so that part of that is what we're trying to fight against. It wasn't done well. If it's done well, if somebody knows what they're doing and understands both team dynamics and understands, play and games, it can be a game changer.
Sure. Go ahead. Did you have a comment?
No, it's just the whole idea. She knows I've got a bug in my bonnet about ROI. I've been writing articles against it. I was in the 90s when and to be frank, it's Phillips that have been pushing ROI Jack and Patty Phillips pushing ROI, and they've written a bunch of books on it, and they've got ATD behind them and everybody else.
But they don't do play.
And it's, they can't, because they don't, to me, it's a complete wrong direction. ROI is about improving a process that already works and making it pay off better. And learning and change is about innovation, and innovation requires you to crash a lot of rockets and spend a lot of money on it. And it's the prize at the end of the innovation when you find the system that works. And
so there's no comparison to an ROI.
There's none. It shouldn't even be in the equation.
Right.
Shouldn't be in the equation, because the idea is we have to come up with something completely different. Now, are you finding that your clients fall into those two categories? The ones that want to fit in a box, and the ones that understand what it is? And the ones that understand what it is are hiring you because they understand, look.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. We're a small company still. And so we've decided that for right now, we're not trying to change the minds of people that are in that, stuck in that ROI mindset, because we don't have 2 years to take to try to win over one company. So we're putting ourselves out there as, hey, if you like this idea, if this intrigues you, if culture is really important to you, if employee experience is really important to you, and you see those not as nice to haves that live outside of productivity and success, but as the foundation, those people are drawn to what we do when they're hiring us to come in.
Right.
And hopefully at some point we'll get critical mass or figure out how to change some of the minds. But right now we're just trying to lead, be there for the people that are already willing to think that way.
I agree. We're at the very beginning of the curve. It's
It's our job to make it an industry, Alex. That's all, and I think even just letting people know that it exists, at least it's in their minds. And it's like, I'm going to, even if they take a step back and say, like your quote, we love creativity, you go first. We love play. Let's see what happens with you. And I think the more success, it's like the kids who don't want to play, it's not that force fun or they're shy. They will take a step back and watch everyone else having fun. Then all of a sudden it's like, all right, maybe I'll dip my toe in and try it. And that's where I think it is.
I would say, once a quarter, I meet someone, business owner at a networking event, and there's a few sectors that they tend to be from. I won't name them. I'm not going to make any enemies on here, but where like I've invested enough in my employees. I pay them and they should just do their jobs and they should do it better. And if that's your mindset and you don't think at all about what's the culture, what's the employee experience, do they have access to the right tools that they need to do their job? Are they clear on their responsibilities? Or are they just constantly in fear of making a mistake? And you're not going to get great performance out of that. But if you're not willing to open yourself up to say, maybe I'm the problem,
right?
There's nothing that we can do. And it breaks my heart that there are people working for companies where that's the mindset.
Right.
It's a lot of old school. So do you have any tips for anyone who wants to work in the area of play, or even start a business where they know they have something?
Yeah, I mean, I think play is applicable to anyone who does, whether it's formal facilitation or training, or if you just see yourself, even unofficially as a leader, you like the idea of facilitating people working together well and making teamwork a good experience, or you're supervising people and want it to be inclusive and very interdependent. I think there's a great way to use play. And to start out with, it almost doesn't matter the game as long as you're not taking it too seriously. And as you're playing, it's less about how people perform in the game and more about, what is this experience like for you? Is this fun for you? Is this not fun for you? And, not everybody is going to like the same game. And so how do you talk about that individual experience and the individual patterns that we have within ourselves, our preferences, our motivators, our fears? That's really important information to know about the people that you work with. And it's great to be able to have those conversations. So just finding a not super competitive, not very technical game or activity to just do for the sake of having an experience to talk about.
Yeah.
I encourage people to give it a try or to go to our website if they want some ideas for games or how to do it.
Absolutely. And that was my next question. How do people find out more information about you and connect with you if they want to ask questions and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, our website is BarometerXP. And people ask why barometer, and in science,
I
like barometer
forgot to
measures
ask. I forgot to ask that. Yeah.
measures atmospheric pressure, and we think ourselves of measuring and dealing with interpersonal pressure. So that's where the barometer comes from. And the XP is experience. So BarometerXP.com. And then we're on LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. We post all kinds of fun videos, and
You do.
we almost every month we do a virtual game event where people can just come in on Zoom and play some games and
play.
think about it.
Yeah.
And play.
Well, I thought very highly of you guys the minute you hired. And then since then,
I'm paying them.
she's been telling me what you guys have been doing. And I've been super impressed with what's going on. So now I'm going to
It
ask.
takes a lot to impress me, because I'm just picky. So that's why the fact that I love all of you as people. You are just, so much fun, and you guys are so open to new ideas and I was like, oh, we never thought about that. I'm like, I love that, because some people have an idea, and I'm guilty of this, of it's like, no, I want to do it my way. We're both guilty of that.
Never. Me?
Yeah.
Never. Absolutely.
So
not.
that, I just feel like your company is getting better and better. And I just know that it's going to get discovered in a big way, that you guys are going to just explode. Trust me. I know things.
Thank you. Well, then we'll be very excited to have people like you on our team, because we're getting close to that point where there's enough interest that it can start to be a recognized field and not just a niche offering.
And that's fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a totally unfair question. This is totally tongue-in-cheek. So I was dragged to an event, political event last night.
Oy.
So, and I just, how could we get the RNC and the DNC to play better together? And a little gamification to get them to start seeing the positives of working together versus working against each other.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like focus on the basic human. I mean, this happens at work where you have like two departments that just hate each other's guts.
And the reason I picked this shared experience for everybody's got something about this.
On a day-to-day basis, what do you need to feel like you can do your best? You can be in the right mindset to get stuff done. Do you know the sport curling, where there's like the stone, and like, what are the things that can be swept out of the way to make, whether it's your home life, whether it's your work life, less friction? And we all can probably agree on some of those things.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you just focus on like the simple minutia of human experience, then you can forget, we believe, different things about this and this, but like, let's just make our days suck a little bit less. Let's make our blood pressure collectively a little bit lower, because we're not worried about,
find the
being cut off in
commonalities.
traffic and, the little things that we all can't stand.
Right. Yeah.
I think
that's the start.
I think that's excellent advice. And I'm predicting based on that, because I think that's so powerful what you just said. I think whichever candidate's party listens to that and starts putting that in the candidate's mouth, they're going to be the party that wins, because that is really what everybody's been asking for.
I think everyone's getting
but that's harder. I mean, I think about this a lot. It's so much easier to criticize and to knock down and to complain than it is to come up with solutions, because that's vulnerable. I mean, like the creative process is way more vulnerable, and we want simple, and the creative process is not simple. And so that, I mean, you have to be willing to know that, any type of change or ideas, you're going to have to get through the bad ones. You're going to have to work through the ideas. You're going to have to consider different things. There's no idea that's fully born in a perfect state. And that takes time. And right now.
Yeah. Well, this episode's going to air just before the voting, when the major voting comes in. So let's see if we change the world.
That's what we're
That really is. Alex, I really love that answer.
She's very smart.
And friend. That's off the cuff. I can imagine if you actually working with somebody and they're giving you all the detail before rather than just throwing something at you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was not the question I was expecting at all. So I'm glad I
comes
didn't
up
just
with
throw
some good
word
questions.
salad.
I knew you would. I knew you would.
Excellent. Anyway, Alex, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And I'm glad that there are other people out there like you spreading out the gospel of play. And hopefully we will come back soon with the boys and we'll do another podcast like this and go on all the other things. We haven't even covered a lot of what you guys do, which is great.
Yeah, we have a lot more conversation.
To have. So for our audience out there, stay tuned. We'll let you know when they come back. Meanwhile, that is it for us. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And this has been Biz-Souls. We'll see you next time. Oh, don't forget. Oh, I forgot. I always forget to say this. Please don't forget to like, subscribe. It really helps the channel, helps the numbers. And yeah, so that's what I forgot. Anyway, this has been Biz-Souls. I'm done.
Thank you.
Did you say you're Jeffrey Hansler?
Yeah, I said it was Jeffrey Hansler.
I forget. All right.
And then you said, thanks for
that I
listening.
forgot.
And then I said, thank you. And then
thanks, Alex.
Deja vu all over. Thanks, Alex. That was great.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.